I know Representative Gary Click, one of really the best in the country, of course in the state of Ohio, but across the nation. And yeah, absolutely.
And we're going to have Representative Click and Klopfenstein for sponsor testimony.
But there's no more local control than Bob and Betty Buckeye.
Well, that explains why he keeps saying, well, that's not the way Representative Click does it.
I'm not supposed to get emotional, but I am.
Then we sat down with Click to discuss his bill and the controversy surrounding it.
And the chair would like to invite Representative Click to present testimony.
The question is, shall the bill pass? The chair recognizes Representative Click.
Welcome back to What's Clicking with Representative Gary Click. We are on our second episode already. Representative, what is the purpose of this podcast, and what all are you hoping to accomplish through this?
Thank you, Janae. Well, the purpose of this podcast is we're not trying to be a media sensation. We're not trying to go viral or anything like that. The whole purpose is really to add value to the district and to present what's happening or what's clicking, as we say, to the folks in our district, in the 88th House District, and to highlight some things that are happening, both with some local folks, like we did with Greg Ettinger last week, and Vanguard, and how we are making an impact locally on the district, and feature some things, maybe even some other local elected leaders or policymakers or just folks in the district, how they're making a difference. But also to introduce some of the folks in the legislature to the folks back here in the district, some of the bills that I'm working on. We can't count on the media, can't count on the newspapers all the time. That's not an insult. It's just they can't follow me around all the time and give all of the news on my bills. And we get so many good compliments from folks about our newsletter that you put out every week. And I appreciate that. And by the way, I always get a lot of compliments when people call in and talk to you. They say, oh, Janae's wonderful. She's doing a fantastic job. She met the needs. And so I'm grateful to you, Janae.
Good.
But this is just one more means of putting things out there to keep the local people in the 88th House District informed. And if some folks from around Ohio want to join in and learn some things about what's happening in Fremont, Tiffin, or the surrounding areas, or some of the bills that we're working on, that's great that they can do that as well.
Well, first, thank you for the kind words, and thank you, constituents, for the kind words. But Representative, on this topic, I hear that we have the esteemed honor of having Representative Brian Lorenz on the podcast. Is that correct?
Brian Lorenz, he'll be glad that you called it an esteemed honor.
It is.
Brian's a great fellow. He's a good legislator. And we have him on today because we are working on a bill. We previewed it last week. It's called Keith's Law. And it is a special needs database and it's all voluntary. And we'll talk about all of this in the interview, but really to help some young people, young or old, that have some special needs when they encounter first responders, whether it's, law enforcement, EMS, or fire. Just that information, having that information can make a huge difference when an emergency occurs.
Well, that sounds incredible. Let's take a look at it.
Hey, so we're here today with Brian Lorenz, State Representative Brian Lorenz, and this is our second episode of What's Clicking, our own official podcast from the 88th House District. And I wanted to talk to Brian today about a bill that he and I are working on, and it's called Keith's Law. And Brian, why don't you tell us a little bit about what Keith's Law does?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me, Gary. Catchy name, and really honored and humbled that you'd asked me to join you. So thanks for that. But basically, Keith's Law creates a voluntary, which is very key in this particular bill, but a voluntary 911 database offering for folks that have special needs, whether they are mobility challenged, psychological challenge, kids on the autism spectrum, comorbidities, things like that will help first responders in the event a situation arises where they need to provide some support to. They're given a screen which will give them some intel about the situation that they're going to run into. And
right. So that bill was brought to me by a gentleman in my district whose name happens to be Keith. And no wonder it's called Keith's Law, right?
Yep.
And Keith brought this to me. He has his own special needs, and he works with a lot of special needs folks in the district. And so he brought this to me. And when we put this out, you came to me and said, I'd really like to be a part of this bill. I've got some personal reasons. So can you tell us why you said, I really want to be a part of this?
Absolutely. So our son Henry, who is 22, is on the autism spectrum. And Henry has pretty good functioning skills. However, he's got some social emotional issues. And he was in a situation where he actually does have his driver's license. And out of my 4 kids, he's probably my best driver because routine and following the rules and whatnot. Nevertheless, Henry was pulled over one evening shortly after he had his license for not having his headlights on. And thank God the person who pulled him over was the high school resource officer, who's also a deputy for the Delaware County Sheriff's Department, who actually knew Henry and was able to calm him down because obviously he was exceedingly nervous. Went up to him and settled him
I can
down,
imagine.
told him to call his mom, not his dad, put her on speakerphone, and explained the situation to my wife and Henry at the same time on why he was being stopped, corrected the situation, and had Henry go on his way. And so when you brought this idea forward, it was really important to me um, because of situations like this. This is an opportunity for us to really, hold back fears of people that may become high stressed in situations like this. And so it was a no-brainer for me. So I'm really excited to be a part of it.
Well, that's good. And, I'm honored to have you as a joint sponsor on this bill. We've got 52 co-sponsors
Mhm.
actually out of the House. It passed almost, not quite, but almost unanimously out of the House.
Right.
And now it's in the Senate. It actually passed unanimously out of committee in the Senate. So it's just waiting for the full vote in the Senate. And I would anticipate that would be an easy vote and that would come along quite well. It's a very bipartisan bill.
Mhm.
And when we had hearings in the House, it was really brought out to us by one of our witnesses that in Idaho there was really a tragedy recently, and we'd seen that on the news ourselves. But there was a young man on the spectrum, autism spectrum, who also had cerebral palsy, and he was going through a tough day. And he did have a knife, and someone else called the police, and they said there's a drunk man with a knife
Mhm.
trying to stab people. And so that was their perception of it, and it was incorrect. But when the police got there, they saw this young man, and they ordered him up off the ground and to drop the knife, and they thought he was lunging at them, but it was really the cerebral palsy, and they shot him 9 times.
Right.
And I just remember in committee, when that story was being told. And then it was told, and it was followed up by a friend of Henry's who
Yes.
gave testimony, and just about everybody, especially the ladies in our committee, I
Mhm.
mean, their mascara was running because they were just
Right.
crying and crying and crying. And so tell us a little bit about, Henry's friend who actually came and gave testimony.
Yeah. So a young man, outstanding young man by the name of Brendan, and he is a really great guy. He's got some cognitive deficiencies as well as some other challenges, some small degree of cerebral palsy. I always say that wrong. Sorry. At any rate, Brendan will acknowledge that it's harder for him to process directions, things, conversations, whatnot. So he may react slower to certain things from a verbal standpoint. And so his concern and what he has told people and what he receives from other people is that sometimes when you first meet him, people think that he might be drunk. And so,
Yeah.
because of the delayed speech and delayed responses and whatnot, and a lot of that nonverbal communication too, that will come off. And we had Brendan come in and testify to that capacity, because it's I can't imagine how hard it is for him to go up there and talk about that and have people perceive him in that manner. And so he's a really brave guy. Brandon Garrett, actually, is the young man's name. And so
And so
his
maybe,
story
yeah, maybe
is
and I think his mom did a lot of the talking, but it's him and his mom both. But
yep, yep,
it's just very, very, very powerful.
yeah,
And, I spent 10 years as a law enforcement chaplain, and I know that law enforcement officers need all the information that they can get.
right,
And information really can save lives. And they want that information so that they know how to respond. But if they don't have that information, they can only respond based on what they see. And sometimes they have to make snap judgments in an instant, in a second, even less than a second sometimes.
right.
And the more information they have. And so even, Keith, who has some anxiety, he has some panic attacks. And he talked about one time being pulled over, and the officer thought he was intoxicated because he was actually having an anxiety attack. But if the officer can see, oh, okay, this person has an anxiety disorder, or they're on the spectrum, or whatever their need is,
Mm,
then they know they're better equipped to de-escalate the situation and what's
absolutely,
going on.
absolutely.
And I think that's just so important, that we have information that guides their response. And we think about folks as well as those might be involved in a fire. The firefighters or the EMS come to a place. And, some of these folks, maybe based on their condition, might be afraid. They see someone coming in a fire suit and they look all scary. They might go hide. They might run the other direction. But if you roll up on that scene in that situation and you have information that there might be a child in there that's on the spectrum or that has some special needs or special disabilities, then that firefighter or that EMS responder might be better equipped in order to respond to whatever situation that they're encountering. So this is a voluntary database. No one's required to be in it. And we know some people have some hesitations and they don't want to share their information.
That's
No
right.
one's required to. It's all voluntary. But once you get it, it will be enrolled in the statewide database. Then it requires every county to have their own special database,
Right.
so that if you go to a home, but the reason it needs to be statewide, we know that there are some that are in pockets here and there, and one county might have it, another county might not have it. But then again, if you are actually, driving and you're out of your county and out of your district, if Henry happens to be in Sandusky County, it
Correct.
wouldn't show up right now.
Right.
Maybe in your county it would show
Yes.
up, but wouldn't anywhere else.
Yes.
And so we make this a statewide database that really enables our law enforcement, our first responders, to get to the crux of the matter, understand before they ever have that encounter, okay, this is the situation that you're going to roll up on here. Many of them have had CIT, which is critical incident training. And so now they can employ those skills when they deal with this person. And I think it's going to be a great thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And, a lot of these folks have, as you mentioned, a fear or anxiety, which drives a different behavior. And then when we deal with folks that are nonverbal, a lot of them have a flight or fight response. And so if you're an officer responding to a situation that wouldn't be a domestic violence situation, but a situation where you need to be there and help out, understanding what you're walking into it's simple. It's knowledge is power. And then to your point, yes, here in Delaware County, we have this, uh, but to have consistency across the state is super important. And there's no cost to what we're trying to advocate
Right.
and implement here as well. So there's nothing but positivity that will come from this bill.
Right. And if we can just even track back a little bit, Henry's friend Brandon, I think, wasn't he in a minor accident at a sporting event?
Yes, I believe so. Uh-huh. And
And
so,
and
yeah.
how did I think that was part of the testimony, and how did that roll out, and what were the fears? What were the concerns?
Well, obviously, Brendan was concerned that he was going to be, first and foremost arrested. He was going to be in trouble. he would lose his license. And he's such a great kid. He feared for retribution for his parents as well. And so all of those things really heightened the anxiety. And thankfully, the person that responded had that additional critical training, so was equipped to handle it. And I think most of our first responders are aware of this. But again, to our point, having that extra bit of knowledge and information in the event that you're not as a seasoned first responder is going to help you de-escalate any issues. I mean, that could have gone really south really fast. He's not a violent kid or anything like that, but you don't know that when you're coming up to a scene. So
Mhm.
having that information is paramount.
And many of the people that we love and respect that are on the spectrum and have special needs, at first glance, you can't tell that they have special needs. That
That's
they
right.
look like the rest of us, they act like the rest of us to an extent, and until there's that situation, and they could come off as just being resistant
Hmm.
or arrogant or defiant when that's really not what's going on. But an informed first responder would be able to know that and make sure that they can de-escalate that situation for the protection of everyone.
Absolutely. Yep.
Well, Brian, I'm so glad that you've decided to join me on this. We're three-quarters of the way through with this. We just got to get the Senate to pass it. I don't think that'll be a problem. And the governor's signature, and then this will be law. Keith's law will be the law in the state of Ohio, and it'll provide extra benefits, extra protections, extra securities around our special needs individuals here in Ohio. Is there anything else you wanted to say before we close out?
Yeah, I would just, the inspiration, obviously, you have that key relationship with Keith, but through this whole process, me getting to know him, he's such an outstanding, brave
Yes.
individual. And, all these people are that are coming out and supporting the bill. But developing that relationship, getting to know him, what he does with the dogs,
Right.
is just, yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. And it's so inspiring to me in our line of work when we meet individuals, whatever the concept
Mm-hmm.
of the bill is, that advocate for issues. And, there's just, I'm so proud to be a representative and an Ohioan, and work with so many great people on these ideas. And Keith he's just a winner.
Yeah, and, that's one of those things we hadn't even covered that, and, maybe we'll cover that when we have Keith on after the bill passes.
Yep.
But Keith does, have a trained rescue dog that is only for rescue. It doesn't do, any protection services. It doesn't attack. It doesn't sniff out drugs or anything like that. It is only used to help find folks with special needs that may have gotten lost. Maybe they've wandered away from a facility or wandered away from home or in the woods, and it's able to track them down. And actually, when it finds them, it actually provides comfort for them while it goes back and calls Keith and the rescue team to where that person is. But we'll talk to Keith about that in another episode. Well, thank you again, Brian. Keep up the great work. It's a privilege to work with you, and I'm so glad that you joined me today.
Likewise. Thanks so much, Gary, for having me on.
This bill sounds like it's going to be such a great impact for those who need it most. As you were talking to Representative Lorenz, it sounded like this bill comes from personal stories and so on and so forth. Is that correct?
Well, it does, and there's as you know, and as we talked about in the interview, Keith. That's why it's called Keith's Law. Keith is a gentleman in the district who brought that to me, but not only to me, when I introduced it to, Brian has a high functioning autistic son that makes it personal for him. And it's just personal for a lot of people. I've been so many places where somebody would say, hey, I'd be talking to a lobbyist who lobbies on something totally different from this. And they would say, hey, I just want to thank you for that. And, I'd say, "Oh, do you have someone close to you?" And they just, nod their head. And so a lot of people have had some experiences and know, on a personal level. I mean, people would just come out of the woodwork thanking us for this bill. And so we're really, grateful for the opportunity and, very confident that the Senate is going to, take care of that soon.
Well, thank you, Representative, for sharing about this incredible bill. We look forward to it coming to the governor's desk. Next week's podcast, as we move forward, is going to be quite a somber topic. Representative, would you like to share more about that?
Well, I think everybody knows the tragic news of the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and you're the one that broke the news to me. I was on my way home from Columbus, and you reached out to me and told me that he'd been shot and that it didn't look good, and I pulled over and took a quick look at what I could find in the news, and of course said a prayer for Charlie and for his family and everyone. And that situation did not turn out the way we hoped it would. And of course, last week, I think, you and I both went to a prayer vigil in Dublin, and I had the honor of giving a prayer, thoughts and prayers, as they say, and to just honor the life of Charlie. And wasn't that an amazing crowd?
Oh my goodness. I talked to someone who was in charge there. They say it was around 5,000 or more who attended that event.
Really? I was
Yeah.
curious how many people. I know he only bought 600 candles, and those were gone right away.
Yeah. That didn't even touch it. It didn't even put a
No.
dent on the people who were there.
And I know they were out into the parking lot. Not everyone could fit into the park, but they didn't leave. And they
No.
were there, and they were it was a celebration of the life of Charlie Kirk. It was
Mhm.
somber, but it was still a celebration. And so I had the opportunity to talk to a couple of my friends from the legislature. Reardon McLean and Tex Fisher are introducing a resolution to honor his life. And so we talked about that a little bit. Tex actually was one of the first employees of Turning Point USA.
Really? That's incredible.
He's one of our state representatives. And Adam Bird, and Adam very often says, "Hey, did you see this episode?" And he'll shoot me one, or once in a while I'll send him one. He probably sends me more than I send him, but he and I talked a little bit as well in the episode for next week. We had the conversation yesterday. Usually takes us about a week to turn around. This is not our profession. This is not what we do for a living. But we're just trying to keep people informed. So whenever we record one, it's going to be about a week later that we actually get it released to the public.
All right. Well, that sounds incredible. And just voicing from the entire State House, we are praying for the Kirk family, and we are looking for a place to continue the work that Charlie did. So as we look forward,
I think we've got a clip from that.
yes,
You want to
I was
show
about
that?
to say, can we take a look at what is next for the podcast and get a little taste of what's going on?
Let's do that.
Awesome.
But I was a daily listener of the Charlie Kirk podcast, daily. And he was an unbelievable guy who was a mixture of Billy Graham and Rush Limbaugh. And so that's why he captured my daily podcast attention. And he almost feels irreplaceable.
Yeah, I would agree. I like that characterization. Rush Limbaugh mixed with Billy Graham, and that's so apt. That's so accurate.
You've been listening to What's Clickin', the official podcast of State Representative Gary Click, covering Ohio's 88th House District. That includes Seneca and Sandusky counties in Northwest Ohio. I'm Janae Myers, his legislative aide. If you would like to reach out to us, you can send us an email at rep88, that's REP88, at ohiohouse.gov, or you can give us a call at 614-466-1374. Thanks again for joining us for What's Clickin' with State Representative Gary Click. We'll be back again soon to let you know what's clickin' in Ohio.